Well, I want to take a moment and introduce to you our next speaker, which actually really doesn't need an introduction. But it's funny because almost 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to, and the pleasure and honor to meet a young whippersnapper named RJ. And I like calling them whippersnappers. I like working with whippersnappers. It's one of those privileges as a coach. I get to work with a lot of different people, a lot of different companies, and I love the young energy. And I remember he came and sat down with me, and we were in our first session. And I looked at him and I said, so RJ, you're a whippersnapper, man. You got that good whippersnapper energy. I said, what are you most excited about at DAC? And he looked down and he looked up, or this is so funny. He looked, he says, everything. I'm excited about everything. I said, all right, that's cool, that's cool. I said, you know, RJ, I said, one of the hardest things for business owners to tell me is the one thing that they really want to accomplish, the one thing that they really want to do. And RJ looked at me and says, it's not hard for me. I says, wow. I said, well, tell me what that is. He says, I want everybody to be wildly successful. More successful than ever before. And I remember looking at him, I said, RJ, that's a vision that's so big, it will choke a horse. And he looked at me and he says, no, we don't want that. and it was from that point on, it was fun. It's always been a treat to be with RJ. I love his energy, and I love his courage and his willingness to get after it. There are just some people who just have that beat, and he's got it. So can we just give him a warm welcome, RJ?
Well, hopefully I can lead up to that. You know, as we come into this, you know, starting here right before lunch and hearing our morning speakers, I think it's pretty evident of what our topic is, the power of you, big and small at the same time. And, you know, we're always looking at DAC of what can we do to better what we have, but also maybe come out with that next new thing that nobody else has. And if you don't know who I am, I worked as a delivery boy for Trapper. I would, in high school, tell him all the time, give me any product I can go deliver, I want to go do it. He would give me deliveries. Then I worked in the warehouse with John and I, and then had the opportunity to work in sales, and then, you know, coming in here to my 4th year as being the general manager. And I've really seen the small things change at DAC that really add up to that big thing. And many of you, like I said earlier, that have been here, been to DAC days. How many of you guys went to Dutch Valley? Raise your hands to one of the DAC days. Pretty cool. We're going to do something with that here shortly. I remember as a kid, you know, I'd ride my 4-wheeler over there from the house because I had nothing to do with the company. And I would ride over there and talk to everybody and then leave. And then, you know, it went to the winery up on the hill. How many of you guys went to the winery on the hill? Awesome. And then now, you know, that was we got to that point, and I always told my father, you know, we want to hit 10 million in sales. His goal was 10 million in sales. And we have been able to do that now the last 2 years, and this year we're right on track to keep surpassing that. And it's because of each individually, you guys individually. And I got these pictures up here because I think a big thing that we, you know, that let a lot of us forget about is the small things, the past, the little things that got us to where we are. When DAC first started in 1983, one product was all we had. That's the original DAC logo right there in the middle. That picture there on the left is when my dad was feeding the DAC products at that time. I was a little guy asking the questions, why are you feeding that? Why are you putting that in there? What's that product do? Why 10 pumps of oil? Let's fill the whole thing full of oil. And then you look forward, and that's my son, who is now a year old with my father there in October, who you see the changes in the small things that we're all invested into. And I think Andy's big thing that he said there when he was talking was, you don't feed a 6-month-old the way you feed a 10-year-old, and you don't feed a 10-year-old probably the way you feed a 25-year-old. We do things different. But that's part of the change and the growth that we see. And I think that is the big thing that we're always looking for at DAC is as the time goes, we have to change. We have to get better at what we are doing. If we stay the same and we don't want to do meetings like this and we don't want to get to gatherings and be able to pass on that knowledge, we're going to stay the same. And so where that comes back to is you. As I've met with Kevin now the last 2 years, we're always talking on what are things that I need to do myself to better everything for each individually one of you guys. What can I do to help my staff? What can I do to help our office staff? But really, what that all being said, it comes down to you. And I think the number one thing is, we look back at where I started at as a little kid coming up through, watching my dad feed the horses, me showing the horses, my sister showing horses, us. I remember one year, my parents, we needed a new air conditioner in our house. My dad was a horse trainer. We didn't have money to buy the air conditioner. We lived in our motorhome in the summer because my sister was running for a title and my dad was taking horses up and down the road showing just so we could make it to the next horse show, so my sister could win that title, so that we could constantly grow. My dad could grow his business and make sure that he was on that leading edge. And then you come down to the point of, if any of you guys were out there last night, you see the DAC facility of what it was 20 years ago. I'm 28 years old now. I remember as a kid, I always went down to the breeding barn where DAC is at now, and I hung out with Furman. Furman has been with the DAC company now, working for my dad for 30 years. And I always was with Furman and watched him back the manure spreader in the trailer, and then he started setting me on his lap. We backed a manure spreader in the trailer, a manure spreader in the barn, and I learned how to back a trailer. But I always watched him clean the barn. Spotless, perfect. Every day he would feed, he'd go through, pick all the stalls, and then he'd sweep the whole barn. And then he would start his day. And in the show barn, it did the exact same thing. The guys would go in, they'd feed, they'd pick all the stalls, tie all the horses up, and they'd sweep the whole barn. And that was something that my dad always said, is it starts with the really, really small things. When somebody comes into your facility, somebody comes into our facility, the last thing they're gonna say is, well, they don't ever clean anything up here. Our vehicles, I stress with Trapper and Everett all the time, run that darn van through the car wash, please. Make that thing clean. And they're on the back roads all the time, you guys know that. But then when the warehouse, or the breeding barn transitioned into the warehouse, Furman didn't change a thing. It's still that same way. It's way cleaner now because there's no horses in there. But if you look through, Andy said 118,000 gallons of oil, 33 bags of DDA, 100 and some gallons of oil a day. Those numbers being pushed out of that facility, I challenge every one of you to come stop in there and see it, because he still does not forget about the small thing, though, of keeping that facility clean. It's spotless every single time. And that's where John and Furman and the couple guys that we have there part-time, it's just normal to them. They come in, they clean the trash cans every single day. The trash cans are hosed out, turned upside down. They do that. But those small things allow us to take care of you guys, to make sure you know that that product that you're getting is fresh, it doesn't get dirty in our facility, and it's shipped out in a timely manner. And so those numbers go a long way. And I think the biggest quote that I have out of it is just do smaller better as we get bigger. And I think that's something to write down. Do smaller better as we get bigger. Every day is an opportunity to get bigger, but how are we going to take care of the small things that we're still doing as we get bigger? And then we're going to go into the next part here. And before I do that, I was doing some numbers back here. How many of you guys, will you stand up if this is your first time to ever attend a DAC Days conference? Please stand up. Wow, round of applause. That is awesome. That's my favorite thing to see right there. But now, how many of you guys, and this can go, you don't have to be a dealer, you could have been a customer, something to do with a DAC product for 10 years or more? Stand up. And stay standing. Round of applause. What about 20 years or more? Stay standing if you've been 20 years or more. 25 years or more. 30 years. 1983 when DAC first started. Look at that. Round of applause. And I think that really shows, holy moly, I'm 28 years old. Sorry, Homer. But I think it really shows, though, how we as a group in here and you guys have invested into the DAC company. And then I look at our sales staff. Trapper, 25 plus years. Katie, 12 years. Tiffany, 4 years. Everett, 12 years in total. Andy, 17 years. Doug, 6 years. Dave, going into year 3. Just bringing Peter Canizero on board at our team. 79 plus years that group and one has been together as a team and us learning about DAC products and our knowledge that is there. Let's give a round of applause to that. But there's 3 main things that I want to talk about today, and hopefully you guys can take out of it, and we're going to do a little challenge with that. The number one thing is relationships. Every single thing that we do in our daily life deals with a relationship. If you build a relationship with somebody, the sale will come. Romp and Play, he says, I don't sell product. I don't sell DAC. I'm not a salesperson. I let the actions, let the product talk. I build relationships with people. Those are what last. It doesn't matter whether that relationship is in the morning when you wake up with your family, your children, to who you go to in the morning at work and you work with them, the relationship you have with your colleagues every day, the relationship you have with your DAC dealer, how Andy said, make them work, use them, push on them, or the relationship at the end of the day with your family when you're sitting around the dinner table, and that's something we take a lot of pride in at DAC, is your family relationships. That's where it all starts. But those small relationships come back to you. If you take care of those relationships, you take care of your friendships, you'll be able to build that next sale, that next customer, and it won't even feel like a sale or a customer. And the second thing is, write this down, is servicing you. These are the 3 things that I have put on my agenda for 2026 that we can better ourselves to help you. In servicing you, we could talk all day on, because obviously that's our goal at DAC, is to make sure you are serviced the way we want you to be at the top of every level. But a few things that we're working on at DAC right now to better service you is, number 1, we trained on it yesterday, our website. We're building a brand new website platform at DAC right now. Hopefully, I see Preston step back in there in the back. Preston is working on building our website. Our first phase, we're hoping maybe end of April, first part of June, we can launch our first phase of the retail side of our website. How many of you guys, raise your hands, have used our website and it's not been very user-friendly? Handful of you. It's not the easiest, and we're going to fix that for you. So we're constantly working on what we can do for that. We're getting a B2B vision, a business division of our website, to where you as a dealer can jump on in there at 10 o'clock at night, log your order in, be able to take care of that. The next thing we're doing to try to service you is our tech, our internet, our service at our office. Many of you have probably tried to call the phone and maybe we don't get an answer right away, or we get put on hold. We're working on bettering that. We're hiring new. We have just brought on Lakin Wallach, which is Deb's granddaughter. It's actually my football coach, Coach Wallach's daughter. She is working in the office very diligently with Deb and Glenna to make sure that we can get those phones answered. We can get you guys taken care of. We're putting in a brand new tech company, or we're going with a brand new tech company to make sure our systems work, our servers work. So when you place that order, we can get those orders in and out in a timely manner. Our strive is, when you place that order to service you, we want it out that day. Now, as we've grown, a lot of us have seen that it's not always that day. But a big thing that we changed this year to help service you at DAC Days, many of you saw last night, is we've brought in more DAC inventory than we ever have in the history of DAC. My father was in Florida, and he obviously sees the email, he sees the day-to-day, and he called me the one day, he goes, my gosh, he said, I saw like 4 emails of 4 different semis delivering product today. And I said to Furman, I was like, I think we're making Dad nervous, all this inventory we're bringing in here. But our goal with that is we want to make sure that you guys coming here today and taking time out of your day, by Friday of next week, every one of those pallets is out of there, and we've not ever been able to do that. It's drug on another couple days. It's been into the next week. Our goal is to service you and make sure that every single bit of that product is out of our warehouse. And then the third thing to write down is communication. And I think this one here probably goes as far as any of them. And I deal with this every single day in our office. When you communicate, whether it be that relationship in the morning with your spouse, your children, your colleagues at work, it makes things flow easier. How many of you guys, raise your hands, run a business in here? A lot of you. It's not always easy, but if we sit down, we communicate, and we can have a conversation about it, the questions are asked. And that's the number one thing, is when you're communicating with people, ask the questions. Get those answers out of them. Make them ask you questions. That's how you can solve the little things that'll help support you by yourself and keep things going. And I think that right there, with that being said, at your table, you have a note page in the back of your, my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Notebook there, in the back of it. There's 2 pages for notes. Take a second here and write down 3 things you want to work on for yourself at your business or your family or your friendship, and write those 3 down. Or on a notepad, whatever you want that you're going to keep and take with. We'll take a couple minutes here and write those down. Now turn to the person to your right and pass one of those on that you're going to be able to help them with, or they're going to be able to hear maybe something different that you want to work on here in 2026. We want to give you all we got, and that's always our goal. Many of you know we owned a race team. We had a race car that raced. We got to race it all over the place, and it was full throttle all the time. And it's all about horsepower and giving you all we got. And I go to those mindsets all the time, and I played high school sports. But our team is what gets us, and it was able to give you guys all we have. And you look at this road path here, and you see PHN GI Pro 3 right up there at the front. We strive on that. Alltech, Kemin, Zinpro. Andy talked about it, and I don't think you can talk about them enough, because they're what sets us apart. They're what gives us that power to go full throttle and be able to support you guys individually as we grow, as we get bigger, and we do the small things correctly. So in your folder there, when you open it up and we have the questionnaire, underneath my name, my goal is I want each and every one of you guys to write down what is the one small thing that you're going to think big about in 2026 underneath my name in that questionnaire. And we're going to collect all those at the end out there in the basket. And I'm going to type them all up. And I have all your guys' addresses. I'm going to send every one of those out to you. It'll be a list of over 250 guests here today, of 250 small things that you can think big about in 2026. That we can all bounce our ideas around. Then when you get those, you can talk to your team at home, your relationships at home, and think of those small things that you're going to really think big about in 2026. So as the day goes, write those in there, and at the end, we'll drop those out out front. But the number one thing is, and Andy touched on it, and I wanted to yell back there, hey, you're stealing my thunder, but use your territory manager. Use your DAC partners, Dr. Cubitt, us, myself, my father, our office staff, our warehouse staff. Use us, please, so we can help you reach that little small thing to help you grow bigger in 2026. And then when we come back in 2027, on March 5th of 2027 will be DAC Days here in this facility. We can look at those small things that we all thought big about and see who else comes up front here, and see how many other new people that have heard about DAC and become a DAC dealer end up in this same room with us. If we commit to the 3 small things, though, that we wrote down, your year will grow. Don't let those small things get too big and too far out of sight either. Look at them every day. Write them on your fridge. Write them on your calendar. But if you commit to those 3 small things, and I'll be sending you guys over 250 of the small things we can think big about, and you just glance at those, and something will spark your interest each and every day of what you can maybe change a little bit to grow a lot bigger. And I don't think this can go unnoticed, and a lot goes into this day, and a lot goes into the people that are here in this room to make it to here. And first off, I want to thank each and every one of you with a big round of applause from everybody for making a day to come here, please. Then we got to look at our partners that were able to help us back this, to help pay for City Barbecue, all the stuff that's on our tables. Everybody gets the 2 samples, the coffee mug, everything sitting there in front of them. We're giving out the treats. Alltech, Combach, Zinpro, Kemin, American Solutions. A round of applause for them, please, for doing everything today. And next is my Aunt Tina. Aunt Tina, will you please stand up back there? She don't like when I do this, but big round of applause. Uncle Rob, stand up. You don't get out of it either. Uncle Rob took a day off work yesterday of his normal job to help Aunt Tina out here all day long setting this up. And then my good friend Dakota and my buddy Jace, both of you guys, please stand up. They were out here with them back and forth from the warehouse, hauling and delivering. But then if you look back at our office, Deb, Glenna, Lakin, every day they're in there. This week was a very challenging week. Actually, the last 2 weeks were pretty challenging. Our credit card portal, the company sold, we had to switch to a new one, the week of DAC days. What else could go wrong? You know, what else can we get? And I went into Deb's office the other morning on Monday, and she was in a little bit of a bad mood. Is Deb sitting back there still? Yep, she's back there. And I said to her, I said, Deb, I said, what's wrong? And I'm going in the office Monday morning. I'm high-fiving. I'm like, it's going to be a week. I am fired up. Kevin's got me on cloud 9 right now. We're ready to rock and roll. And I go into her office. She's just a little flustered. And I said, Deb, what's wrong? Oh, you know, she's all flustered. And I said, Deb, I said, your cup is half empty right now. I said, I need that cup to be half full, not half empty. I left. I come back in the office a little while later, and she's got a full glass of water sitting on the corner of her desk. And she said to me, she goes, is it all right to sit right here? I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, my cup, it's full now, baby. Let's go. So Deb and Glenna and Lakin, though, they've been working extremely hard, tireless hours. Deb was in the office till 9:30 last night. Those 3 ladies in the office have done a fortune to help this event, make sure these orders and all this processing goes on. So let's give them a round of applause, please. And then I talk about Furman and John. We have 2 other part-time guys that aren't able to make it here. Jace worked in the warehouse with those guys this week cleaning, but they take a lot of pride in what they do. They're never late. They're there early most of the time. They're there late most of the time, and they're constantly making everything in that facility be the best we possibly can be. We're making sure that inventory comes in. Furman's making sure that inventory's stocked up. John's filling buckets, making sure that we have every single thing taken care of so we can service you guys as fast as we possibly can. So a big round of applause to them as well. And then the last ones here are probably the ones that, you know, hit home the most. And I talk about relationships and something that's very challenging and very hard. And this past 2 weeks, my wife will probably tell you, I have a 1-year-old little boy and coming home and, I'm stressed. I'm coming down for lunch to the house and she's like, you just need to talk to me. You just need to talk to me. And I'm sorry to my wife of how I've probably been in a little bit of a bad mood these past couple weeks. But cannot thank my wife enough for being behind me all the time, spending a lot of time away from her, getting to travel with our sales staff, getting to, work with Kevin, work with all of you guys. So a big, big thank you to my wife. Round of applause to her, please. And then lastly, my parents. Obviously, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for my father, Randy, and my mom. Mom taught school for 34 years as a living. Dad showed horses up and down the road. The whole reason he ended up purchasing the DAC company, or one of the big reasons he ended up purchasing it was he said, I can't keep going up and down the road and missing your high school sporting events. He goes, I've used this company. I know it's a good company. He goes, I think the timing is right. Let's buy it. And he ended up purchasing the DAC company, and that's what has led us to where we are today. So a huge round of applause for my father and mom. But with that, I can't thank each and every one of you guys enough. And no matter how big we get at DAC, we're still going to focus on the small things. Will not change. We're constantly growing. Our sales have grown for the past 19 years in a row. But the small dealer meetings, the individual clients that we get to meet, coming to your facilities, getting to take care of you, the phone calls, our sales staff, we are focused on the small things. So write down that one thing there in the survey that you want to think big about, one small thing you want to think big about in 2026, and we'll collect those at the end of the day. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. We'll be around, but again, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, RJ. And that's a great challenge for 2026 to think big about small things. And hey, make sure you fill those out, because I think the idea, right, RJ, is to share all of them collected, to share them and put those out to everybody. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, a couple things to cover before we go to lunch. And we got City Barbecue, and I'm very excited about that, by the way. I think it's like, I'm looking forward to that. But hey, a couple housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, if you were in room 714, there was a black briefcase that was left there. And they're pretty certain at the desk that was you. Make sure you go to the front desk and get that briefcase. You don't want to miss out on that, I'm sure. So just wanted to remind you of that. Also, as we exit for lunch, and Randy will be tapping the tables to go here in a few minutes after I pray. But it is just, he'll get up and do that. But beware, the floor just, it's been so wet recently. The floor out there, the condensation's making it slippery. So just be careful when you're out there getting around, because we don't want you to slip and fall. So be aware of that. So, hey, can we all stand together? Hey, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for our time here today. We're so thankful for the opportunity to learn and to grow and to listen, to be able to connect with others, to be able to be challenged, to think big about small things. And the small things are what matters. And so, God, I just pray for our day today, our lunch today. We ask you bless our food, but also bless our conversations as well. May we challenge one another to get better every single day, a little bit at a time. And we offer this and we pray this in your name. And everybody said, amen.